Hello, everyone. Welcome to Nature and Science Podcast, where science does care what you believe. I'm your host, Don Murphy. We explore the science behind the latest technological developments, ask the deep questions about existence, and seek verifiable truth leading to a clear view of reality. This episode is all about deep fakes. It is getting more and more difficult to tell what is real and what is fake, especially on social media and even on TV networks. In this episode, we will explore the war that's raging between creation and detection of deep fakes. So what exactly is a deep fake? Joining us to answer that question is Dr. Ilka Demir. She's on the front lines of this battle. Dr. Demir is a curious research scientist working on topics in 3D vision, computational geometry, generative models, remote sensing, and deep learning. She earned her PhD from the Department of Computer Science at Purdue University, working under the supervision of Daniel Aliaga. She later joined Facebook as a postdoctoral research scientist. After some groundbreaking projects, she left to pursue a startup path, which ended with an acquisition. That next led her to find her research haven in the world's largest volumetric capture stage at Intel Studios. She has a BS degree in computer engineering with a minor in electrics and electronics engineering from Middle East Technical University in Turkey. Dr. Demir, welcome to the program. It's so exciting to have you here to talk about deep fakes.
Thank you. A pleasure to be on the podcast.
Well, first, what led you to work on deep fakes and inspired you to work in this field? Were you inspired as a young person or as a young girl growing up? What got you into this field?
Especially in deepfakes, all deepfakes and like these techniques are a result of generative models. And I have been working on generative models for many years before it was cool, for maybe more than 15 years. And when like 5, 6 years ago, when they were first emerging, seeing them as a product of generative AI models, generative models, or traditional generative models, I was thinking that there should be some prior, some like hidden things in that data so that we can actually use it for finding whether they are deepfakes or not. So that's like what actually sparked the very first defect detection method, fake catcher. And from there, we started working on deepfakes more and more.
Right. You mentioned fake catcher. So before we get started, I know the audience is going to hear us say PPG a lot, and that's photo plethysmography. Is that correct?
For the plethysmography, yes.
And that's a tool that you use for detecting deep fakes. So how has the accuracy of fake catcher evolved since its initial development, and what improvements are you currently working on, if any? And how does it work exactly?
Right. So, fake catcher is the very first deep fake detection method that we developed, and it looks at the blood flow. So, when your heart pumps blood, it goes to your veins, and your veins change color. That color change is computationally visible, and as you just said, PPG signals for the plethysmography is used to understand whether how your heart is behaving, basically. So we collect those PPG signals from many places on the face, not just like 1 or 2 points, but like many points, and then look at their correlation, whether it is coming from one heart or whether it is a fake video, so it is coming from multiple signals, it is like deteriorated, etc. So we look at their spatial, temporal, and spectral consistencies to understand whether something is real or fake. And on top of those signals, we build a lightweight neural network so that we can be robust against like illumination changes, occlusions, like other things that can actually bend the signal a little bit. So that's basically fake catcher, and that's the very first thing that we developed. Of course, it's like improving always. We are always working on like how much we can improve. The very first accuracy that we have seen was 96% on face forensics data set. Of course, after that, we had many different data sets, many different evaluations. We are continuously working on like how we can actually make those signals better, combine other signals to fake catcher so that it can actually detect even more videos.
So let's back up a minute because I know our listeners are probably saying, what is a deep fake actually?
Mhm.
I mean, we see all sorts of things on social media that aren't real.
Right.
And I get messages from people saying all the time, I know that's not real. What do you think, Don? From a scientific point of view. And so what exactly is a deep fake and how do you define it as a scientist working on identifying deep fakes?
Yeah, so like even this morning, a friend of mine actually sent me a video where there is the series called The Boys, and there's Captain America in that series. So Captain America having drinks with many different politicians and stuff. It's like yeah, it's obviously not real, but so believable. So deepfakes are those. Content can be audio, can be images, can be video, can be 3D. That content where the action or where the actor or the action of the actor is not real. So making you say things that you haven't said, or like putting your face onto someone else's face, or creating from scratch a non-existing people, etc. All of those are different ways that deepfakes are actually infiltrating our lives right now.
Right, I understand. So you mentioned how photoplethysmography works in looking at blood flow in your skin and that sort of thing. So it leads, one to ask, how does it work with different skin tones? I mean, and are there biases in skin tone, or are there problems identifying deep fakes with different skin tones?
Perfect question. Very, very timely question when all the um, questions, all the bias related questions in research is being ignored right now. Like, with
Right.
the new like NSF, NIH policies, etc. I don't want to go there, but great question. So we actually did many experiments on different data sets which have categorized videos per skin tone, and we haven't seen a big variance per skin tone or per gender because there are different kinds of PPG signals. So there is Chrome PPG, there is GPPG, and other ways of extracting them. So we actually use a combination of Chrome PPG and GPPG to be more robust towards skin color changes. So Chrome PPG doesn't look the actual RGB value, but actually look at the chrominance of the skin, and because of that, it has been more widely used in medical domains, because PPG is not specific to us. PPG has been used in medical domain for many years. So we also integrated with GPPG, which is more robust to illumination changes, because that's also another thing that we need to be robust against. If there is like a light change, some like shade on my face, if I have a hat and then there is like shade on my face, etc. So all of those should be considered when you are doing defect detection. And because of that robustness metrics that we are trying to integrate, then we are actually not seeing like high variance, actually not even like small variance between different skin tones.
Well, that's really good to know. So that you're using this integrative approach, not just one tool, but you're trying to use different tools, and that really helps the process be a little bit more robust, as you described. So one of the things that's happening is that a war is breaking out, isn't it? I mean, as generative AI continues to advance, um, do you anticipate an arms race between the deepfake creators and detectors like yourself? And how do you see that evolving over the coming years?
That's also another great question. So um, that arms race, yes, it at a point it was more obvious because all the deepfake detectors were trying to find out what is wrong in a video. What are the artifacts of fakery? What is like, is there like boundary artifacts or symmetry artifacts, etc. When you are in a deepfake detector, when you are looking for artifacts, you have no guarantee that the next generative model will actually fix those artifacts. But when you are looking for something authentic in the video, something that is not being replicated in the fake videos yet, then you are actually a little bit more secure that, like, okay, the next generative AI approach will not be fixing this one probably, because it's not some, like, you can also even mathematically have it protected in a way that it is not replicated. For example, for PPG signals, like just a little bit like 10-second background on neural networks. Neural networks are actually learning these input output relations with some weight layers in between, right? To be able to learn something, they need to backpropagate, which means the error at the end goes into the layers, so the weights in the layers change, and then you actually fix all of your learning a little bit, and that's an iterative approach. For that backprop to work, your signal, the thing that you are trying to compute, needs to be differentiable. If it is not differentiable, you cannot backpropagate. And if you cannot backpropagate, you cannot learn it in a generative model. So, for example, for PPG signals, these are not differentiable signals, at least like the way that it is actually extracted, they are not differentiable. Because of that, you cannot actually backprop and try to learn that. And because of that, like since the past 5-6 years since we built fake catcher, it still hasn't been tricked directly to create like non-existing heart rates. But for example, for other work let's say the eye gaze based detector. So we have some gaze signatures that we are extracting to understand, just based on the eye and iris and pupil area, whether we can understand whether it is real or fake. For that work, not the whole gaze signature, because we have many different features, many different signals in that, but one of them is the gaze direction, right? So we published that work in, I think, 2021, and around 2023, NVIDIA released a generative AI framework tool where even if you are not looking at the camera, they are actually correcting your gaze to look at the camera. So that's actually taking the gaze directions and learning those gaze regeneration of the gaze directions, because the vectors that we are shooting from our eyes are actually some linear computation. That is differentiable. And because of that, they can actually learn that. So the arms race works for those signals that you can replicate. The arms race actually really works for if you are looking for like fakery signals, but it is not as valid if you are looking for things that are genuine and authentic in real videos.
So what you're saying is, if I can summarize, is in this arms race, or this battle between creators and those that are trying to catch the creators, the detectors, there are certain things that the creators cannot catch up with. In other words, the detectors can work to a pretty significant degree, because the creators are not able to go in and replicate or mask what they're doing. And one of the examples you used was heart rate or blood flow. Is that correct?
Right, correct.
Right. But then there are other things that creators can catch up with. So if were you using eye gaze as an example where they can go in and catch up basically with you detectors and correct? So it makes it more difficult for you to use eye gaze to detect.
Exactly. So there are some, let's simplify it. There are some easy signals which those generative models can learn, and there are some very hard and complex signals that still not those models cannot learn. So the arms race for detection actually starts when you can find those super hidden, super complex signals that are not replicated correctly.
I see. Wow. So where do you think we stand right now with this arms race? Are you ahead of the creators, or catching up, or are you even?
Um, in terms of technology, I think we are even because although there is so much emphasis on the dark side of AI for all these deepfakes and misinformation and like all of these like dooming approaches, there is also as much technical contributions and research that is being done on the good side of AI to battle against deepfakes, to battle against misinformation, to fight AI with AI, etc. However, in terms of adoption, I think detection is a little bit behind, lagging behind, because like every curious mind is trying to find out this, like, oh, there's this new face swap approach, there is this new deepfake generation approach, etc. I want to try that, but not as many people are saying, oh, there's this new like deepfake detection tool. I need to try this
Mm.
on many videos,
Right.
etc. So hopefully, a little bit more awareness, with a little bit more emphasis on like those AI for good tools, the adoption can also catch the Gen AI adoption.
Understand. So when we had an earlier conversation, you were explaining the positive aspects of using your technology and detection and using deep fakes basically to protect people. We
Right?
don't think of it as deep fake in that context, but it really is. Can you explain how that works? In other words, how our individual identity can be protected using these tools?
Yes, absolutely. So we are working not only on the defensive part, but we are also using on the proactive part about how we can protect things before they are damaged, right? So we have this series of algorithms like my art, my choice, my face, my choice, my body, my choice. I know the last one has a different connotation, but in this area, we are like
Right,
protecting, like anonymizing full bodies. That's why it's called my body, my choice. Anyway, so,
right.
for example, for my art, my choice, imagine that your favorite cousin posted a photo of you to a social media platform, which is not your favorite photo, and you don't want to be in that photo. What do you do, right? So, for that, we have developed My Face, My Choice, where if you don't want to be in the view of someone for that photo, for example, you don't care if your cousin sees that photo, he or she uploaded it anyways, but for a stranger or for your other friend, you don't want to be in the photo. So in that case, your face is used to compute the most dissimilar face in a face manifold, and then that most dissimilar face is used to create a deepfake of your face with the same expression, with the same smile, same gaze, etc. But your identity is not there. So anyone that you don't want to be seen by in the photo, they will look at the photo and see completely someone else with the same pose, etc. But you are not there. Now, you will say that, well, are you putting Brad Pitt in my photo instead of me?
Right.
No, so that face manifold, that like sea of faces that I mentioned, is actually with constructed with non-existing faces. So we are turning you into someone that doesn't exist.
Hmm. Well, that's interesting. So no Brad Pitt faces.
No Brad Pitt.
That's good. So these are apps that like can I or a person take this app and put it on social media on Facebook to use it to prevent my photo from being shown by my cousin or shown by someone else that I don't want to see it?
Yeah, so right now they are research prototypes and we have demos for them. They are not apps yet. If anyone in the audience is interested in having them like prototyped or demoed, or like a way to integrate them into their workflows, just contact me and we will see how it happens. And hopefully they will also be available soon by different platforms.
Yeah, well, I'll make sure your contact information is given at the end of the program so people
Thank you.
can communicate with you. So, how do you envision fly fake catcher? I keep wanting to say fly catcher. How do you envision fake catcher being deployed in the real world, social media platforms or news organizations, or especially in the political arena is my question. I mean, because, a political opponent can take me in my face and have me saying all sorts of things that I didn't say.
Mhm.
And then going on the news and saying, well, I have a video of Don Murphy saying this, that, or the other, but it's not really me.
Right. Um, First of all, just luckily, we actually, not all the states, but some states, including California, have some legislations about political deepfakes. So hopefully, at least that part is protected and you won't be replicated for political advantages or disadvantages. For the main question, um, fake catcher can be deployed in many domains and many different areas. We already have some collaborations with different nonprofits, different human rights organizations about how we can actually help them find those like high impact, high value, high impact, high risk deepfakes, so that before something happens, it's like immediately before it becomes viral, it's immediately found, etc. And we have seen the examples of such deepfakes in many countries worldwide, like um, in I think there was some in India, there was some in Georgia, and some other places. Like those political deepfakes were actually being used in like swaying the public opinion. And the human rights organization, actually, the individual journalists and news organizations actually goes to the human rights organization, and then they contact us, and like not just us but like many different parties that are doing deepfake detection, and we actually report all of our findings, and they communicate to journalists so that they can actually catch them before it goes public, it goes like viral. That being said, fake catcher can also be a part of like social media platforms where we see those deep fakes like invading everywhere. Like even like I don't know, our all the relatives are believing all of those videos, etc. And that actually brings me to another um, area. So detection is great. It should be there. It should be a part of every video consumption or image consumption or audio consumption platform. However, there's also the provenance aspect of it. So
Hmm.
any media that is around, we should have the right to know who created, how it was it created with consent, was it created with a generative model, which generative model was used, etc. So all of these are the provenance information, provenance track of that media. And if even if like the platforms are not employing a detector, they need to at least show the origin of that media. And there is actually a coalition for that, standards body for that, which is called C2PA, Coalition for Content Provenance and Authenticity. And that coalition brings all the industry experts in this area to create these standards about provenance. And it's called the C2PA manifest. And that manifest have everything about that content. From the capture or from the generation or from the creation to the consumption of that media, everything goes into the ingredients of that manifest. And we have seen a little bit of like traction there, not a little bit, like everyone is like adopting C2PA happily. So some social media platforms, actually, if you have a C2PA enabled content, you upload there, they actually show those content create content credentials on top of the media, and you can see how it was created. I think OpenAI also have some of that. Image generation tasks actually include C2PA manifest, so you can see if some image is created by OpenAI, etc. So, like thinking beyond detection or thinking beyond fake catcher, these provenance and detection approaches should be going hand in hand for content that we don't have provenance information, there should be detection approaches. For content that we have provenance information, that the provenance should be easily digestible for anyone that is consuming that content.
Well, you're saying easily digestible, but isn't the challenge coming from if you're watching, for example, a news program and some reporter puts a video on or the audio of some politician speaking, and you're listening to that, and you've, as a listener, or maybe even someone that's a extreme devotee of a particular program, you believe it already, or you've already bought into the idea. So how in real time do you show that provenance so that people watching or know where a video came from or where an audio happens to come from? I mean, is there something on the screen at the bottom, or is there a disclaimer, or does when the news programs start, they talk about the provenance or where they get their information from? How does that work?
That's a great question. For traditional media, for televisions, we are already just bound to what they want to show us. So I don't want to go into
Right,
that space. But for
right.
digital media, for example, BBC is a part of C2PA, and they are actually using that provenance information for any content that they are getting. And it's not only like when we talk about provenance, it's the whole lifetime of the video, let's say, right? It's not just creation, like who captured it, when it was captured, how it was captured, which camera was used to be captured, then who actually edited it, was it edited, was it spliced, or was it like, I don't know, foreground background segmentation, what edit operations went into it, then who actually published it like online, or who distributed it, who has the publishing rights, distribution rights, editing rights, etc. So all of that information gets stacked on that C2PA manifest, so that like whenever you are seeing let's say you are seeing a photo on BBC's website, right, then you can actually look at that content credentials, click on that, and then you will see the whole manifest that is
So that's
actually
like
shown.
that's like metadata.
That is like how you see it is like metadata, but it is actually protected. The C2PA manifest is protected in the manifest store, which is like very hard to go and change, and like like all of that protection stuff around like blockchain and stuff.
Hmm.
So it's not only metadata that is easily can be modified or attacked.
Hmm. So it can't be easily modified or detected. That can't be faked. In other
Yes,
words,
exactly. Yes, yes.
fake within fakes is,
Welcome to my
is
world.
right. Um, so how many people or companies are in this space? It's just a question that occurred to me because you mentioned that you can go to other companies or to help find out whether these deep fakes are happening. So you're in this space. How many companies are involved in this? And are some of the big players like Google and Intel and other folks involved in this as well?
Yeah. In the big space, I think one of the very first detectors we released that like we as fake catcher, and then there was the Microsoft authenticity detector, something like that. That was like very first ones. Their accuracy was not there, but like they were aware of the problem. They were working hard on it. I don't know what happened to that, if it is still working or not. There's of course lots of academic research going there. Berkeley has a big team working on that. I think University of Buffalo has a big team working on that, and of course, like internationally, many universities are working. One of them in Italy, there's a big team. Anyway, so and then there's a startup space, like where every day there's a new company blooming, and
Hmm.
so but the my good friends Reality Defender is a startup in that space. They are like doing wondrous things. They started like pretty early in the game, so their platform is, I think, building better and better every day. There is uh, there is I don't remember their new name.
Hmm.
Their old name I remember. Anyway, there are several startups that are trying to do things there. Some of them doing B2B, some of them like enterprise solutions, etc.
Hmm.
And yeah, the space is, like everyone is trying to write some like GPT wrappers right now, like all of the startups trying to, oh, Gen AI, Gen AI, Gen AI. So I think comparably, there's much less companies that are looking at misinformation, disinformation space, even less in provenance space. I have seen some colleagues in different organizations about protecting IP, protecting copyright. That is also closely related to like provenance and like ownership questions, but not much on the actual problem of like where does this content comes from. Um, so yeah,
Understand.
that's the current landscape.
So somebody listening is probably going to think, will they have on the 25th generation of iPhone, will they have an AI app that will be able to detect a deep fake very easily to make deep fakes almost obsolete? In other words, they'll just be able to click on a photo and the app will tell them immediately, hey, this is a deep fake.
I hope so. I just want to put an asterisk there and like say coming soon.
That's what you're hoping and working
Yes.
on. I understand. So you mentioned collaborations a little bit. So I know in AI, for example, I've had other theoretical physicists on the program, and one theoretical physicist who happens to be a friend of mine just he left theoretical physics to go and work on artificial intelligence, particularly with Claude, that particular application. So, are there people in other fields collaborating on this? You mentioned medicine, for example, and
Mm-hmm.
that photoplethysmography. I hope I'm saying that right and not butchering the term. Anyway, PPG
Mm-hmm.
is was has been used for some time in medicine. So, are you collaborating with people in the medical field, physicists, photographers, people across the spectrum to help improve this?
Yes, and I will actually divide it to like three parts. So for the technical parts, yeah, we have been working with so my close collaborator in Binghamton University, Professor Dr. Chifchi. He has been working on different biological signals for so long. Even his PhD is about that. So he was the main brain about how those medical and physiological and biological signals can be used in different defect detection approaches. So, and we have other collaborations in that space. Now, the second part is not only the technical part, but also the human part, because especially when we are building tools or applications or research for enhancing human experience, right? Not for the of course for deepfake detection, but also for the other protection approaches that we talked about, like my face, my choice, my art, my choice, etc. If we build something that is technically sound, quantitatively nicely evaluated, all the numbers are high, but it doesn't help the artist, then why are we even building it, right? So, for example, we do many different user studies about how we can evaluate the human response, like human AI collaboration on detection and generation spaces. And my art, my choice is one of them, where we actually protect visual content from being replicated by
Yes.
diffusion models, by like generative models. You have this, let's say, awesome digital drawing that you did. It is like you want to put it into your online gallery, but like some web crawler will come and get it from there, and like when you write, create me an image, a landscape in the style of Don, it will actually replicate your style, right? We don't want that to happen. So how can we actually prohibit that, prevent that? My art, my choice is a generative model itself that takes an image, learns to create a protected version of that image, so that when the protected version is given as reference to a generative model, to DALL-E, to Stable Diffusions, to your favorite generative AI approach, it actually breaks it. And the output is very noisy, doesn't look anything similar to what your original image was. It cannot replicate your style, etc. So my art, my choice is on paper sounds great, I guess.
Right.
But what do artists think about that, right? So we did a very comprehensive artist study where we interviewed 102 different artists on whether they would use my art, my choice to protect their art. And there's also like different levels of protection, so like high protection, more distortion, versus low protection, high fidelity, etc. So 90, all in all, like we have many findings from that study, but all in all, 98 over 102 artists actually said that they would use my art, my choice in high fidelity mode for protecting their art. It like reduces their anxiety, their worry about Gen AI like invading their style, replicating their images, etc. So that was like very eye-opening for us. It was
Hmm.
like giving us more confidence that we should actually pursue this path, our research in this direction, because it's not just numerically, quantitatively good. It is actually subjectively and aesthetically good too, because artists said so. So that is the second area of collaboration. Like we are not only collaborating with like technical people, but like all the potential users about like whichever domain that they are using our detection or generation approaches, artists, journalists, as I said, non-profits, etc. We are also collaborating with them to understand how they would use our approaches. And then the last part is we are also collaborating with government agencies and different coalitions and different standards bodies, different groups that are trying to do a little bit on the policy work about what should be the potential laws, what should be the potential recommendations, what we should include in terms of helping people trying to navigate this space, etc. So that is the last part that we have many guidance documents and many seeds on how those frameworks should be used, could be used, should not be used, what are the
Right.
risks, etc.
Right. So what about real living fakes? So Mission Impossible, the movie, comes to mind. So everybody knows whatever that guy's name is that plays the hero in Mission Impossible. He's always putting on masks. And so in the human realm, if someone is changing their identity with a mask or even with plastic surgery, can these tools be used to like, take a picture of their face or you do some sort of magic with the camera or with a handheld detector and you can detect whether their face is real or not. I mean, I'm thinking about the movie where he walks into some embassy with somebody else's face and they have, of course, metal detectors and all of these kind of detectors. Will there be a detector that can detect a fake face or a fake body that someone has made a change to?
Very interesting question. Okay. I have been talking about like fake catcher and defect detection for so long, and I think this came for the first time. So I need to think.
I
um,
understand.
so if we look at the fake catcher, how fake catcher is catching fakes, right? Um, if there is a layer between your face, your actual skin, and
Hmm.
what the camera hits on,
Hmm.
then if uh, that layer is not completely transparent and it doesn't like allow the skin color changes to be seen, then of course it will be found as fake.
Hmm.
Um, so a very simple example is that like for clowns that are like really using like face paint and stuff, and we don't see almost anything, right? Then there is no blood flow. And if there's no blood flow, we will say that probably it is fake. If there is like masks and things like that, then that happens. On the other hand, all the detectors that we are building, we are trying to not decide for you, but we want to give you as many signals and as many explainable results so that you decide for yourself about whether something you see is real or fake. So imagine a collection of deepfake detectors. Fake catcher looks at the skin and says, well, this is fake. Then eye gaze-based detection looks at the eyes, and because the mask doesn't like cover the eyes are still real eyes. It will say that, well, according to the eyes, it is actually real. And then, for example, we have motion-based defect detection, right? It will say that, well, the head motion is actually real, but the action units or like the submuscular motion, like all of these mimics and stuff, the submuscular motion is actually fake because probably the mask is not as moving as much as the actual muscles, right? So you will have all these information and then you will decide. And in such edge cases, like whether there's a mask or, maybe half of the face is painted, etc., like in all those edge cases, you will actually just have more signals to reach to a conclusion by yourself. And that's, I think, the most important thing. And now that it comes to my mind that, like, as we were talking about all these collaborations and like all these studies that we were doing, one of the things that we have concluded from our defect detection study is that the defect detectors are super powerful in looking at low-level signals and deciding if something is real or fake, like PPG or eyes or etc. But humans are very good at finding context-based deepfakes. So if the same example all the time, there's a video where Trump with Christmas attire reading a children's book in front of the United States flag, right? Which is contextually cannot happen, probably. I mean, we can expect anything, but anyway, which should not which should not happen theoretically. Even though it's a super highly believable, like very photorealistic deepfake, the low-level signals may be a little bit more hard to find for deepfake detectors, but humans looking at it in the first case and like, no, this is fake, like contextually, this is not possible, So that's why we want to depend on your reasoning. We want to depend on the human's actual deduction capability after giving or fortifying all of their senses with all this information from detectors.
But the contextualization seems like it would be a prey to bias. That bias would be very easy to enter into the contextualization part of it. But then you're saying that's why you have to use all of these tools, not just one.
Absolutely. And in that study, one of the things that we looked at is all of those biases. For example, familiarity bias or the demographic intersection of the viewer and the actor. And we actually found out that very similar to how our memory works, that there are some research in our memory that we tend to remember details about people that are close to our demographics, like in terms of age, gender, skin color, etc. And it is similar in deepfakes too. So if it is a person that is closer to your properties, your attributions, then you have a more critical eye to find whether they are real or fake. So there is some bias there. So I may find I don't know, old white male to be more statistically fake or real. Like my margin of error to find that person fake or real is more than finding someone like young with like my appearance, female, to be real or fake. So Yeah, so there is definitely that bias. We also looked at familiarity bias. So like if it is an actor, if it is someone famous, etc. We also looked at the language bias. So people tend to find whether real or fake in their own language than like the other languages. They have more like a more value of error in other languages, etc. So yeah, so there is definitely that bias, but that's why we are trying to give you as much information so that you can be as much data driven while also preserving your contextualism with like with history, with foreground background, with people's characteristics and what they should be saying or should not be saying, etc.
Right. So I'm going to end this by asking you to be a prophetess and predict the future. What's the future of this, of deep fakes and detection? And is there something else on the horizon that's hard to even conceive might happen? I mean, 50 years ago, we wouldn't have even thought, that deep fakes would be as possible as they are today. So is there something 50 years from now that your research is saying, we need to look out for?
Well, first there is the utopia that we are all working towards, right? So all every media that we see, like even in this like Zoom call, even in this like video platforms or social media or news or like everywhere, there will be provenance information, and that will be a default. Like you wouldn't even be looking for it. Like it would be there for you to consume as natural as we are consuming media right now. So that's the utopia, and in that case, like you will know if something is fake, you will know if something is real, you will know who created, how it was created, etc., etc. So that in that utopia, probably we won't even need detection because everything will come with provenance information already. Now probably we won't be there. Although I really, really want us to be all there, and we are doing all
Right.
we can to be there. Um, there's also a dystopian scenario where these tools will become so rogue, so unregulated, so like mainstream that like everything will be everything will be replicable, everything will be stolen, everyone will be saying everything, etc. And in that case, the belief, the uh, actual value of content will degrade. People will start to not consume content because they have no idea about what is real, what is fake, what is truth, what is believable. So why waste your time if you have no give in, no like nothing you can get from that content,
Mhm.
right? And in that case, my hope is that will sway general adoption of detectors, general adoption of provenance approaches, so that, well, you can actually, like the platforms or media or whatever, will say, well, you can actually believe us because we give you all the origin information about content, so you can actually have a little bit faith in us
Right.
and like consume our content. Hopefully that won't be like 50 years in future. That will be like a closer future where provenance and transparency is a differentiating factor for those platforms or for those areas. Not like, okay, we have the most raw content, so we are most liked, most shared, most whatever.
Right. So that leads me to ask yet another question. I know we could go on and on about
Yeah,
this,
I
but
know.
social, and we were talking about collaborations, and so to some extent, there needs to be collaborations with social scientists, with economists, with people that try to predict human behavior. Because I know there was an essay that was recently written describing what you're talking about, where humanity gets to the point where they don't even listen to social media or watch TV because they don't know what to trust anymore. And so there comes this time, I don't know if you'd call it a dystopian society where, people just turn off all electronic devices. They all just go away. And I know there was an essay written on this recently. So it would lead me to ask, is there researcher collaboration where you're looking at kind of the long-term and short-term trends of where humanity's going with respect to accessing information and how these different tools are going to impact that over time. And will we get to a point where people just abandon social media and media altogether?
Us specifically, we haven't done research on like long-term usage in such general topics, but we actually have research on trust metrics and how those trust metrics, what are the vectors in those trust metrics, like explainability of tools or consumed media, ex- um, um, uncertainty of those detectors about like how they are like conveying their results, the intervals, if it's a real-time platform, how they are actually presenting the results, like every second, every 10 seconds, whatever. So we have a little bit more limited research on trust metrics, and those trust metrics can be used in future about like predicting how those like social media and media consumption projectiles will go on in future, and they can also be used to make those systems more secure, more trusted, more valuable, about how they can actually enhance those online experiences. um, there are some other research in the area about how not like visual content as we have been talking about, but like LLMs and chatbots and agents and etc. How those are affecting the human digital experience. Are we trusting more? Are we trusting less? Is like co-creation with LLMs etc. are actually degrading creativity, or is it actually enhancing, etc. There are so many research going on, mostly in the LLM space, not generative space, I would say.
Understand. Well, I think we'll leave it at that. I mean, this is just a fascinating subject, and I really appreciate your work on deep fakes, Dr. Demir, and I know our listeners are fascinated by all of this. And we'll put your contact information on and references to some of the papers you've written as well on the subject matter. Thank you so much for joining us on Nature and Science podcast.
Thank you. It was absolutely a great conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed our discussion on deep fakes. If you want to learn more about the battle between creation and detection of deep fakes, you can go to our website at natureandsciencepodcast.com, where you'll find a link to Dr. Demir's website. Please hit the like button and leave a comment. As always, stay safe, share happiness, and remember, never stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing.